I think it's fair to say that British car company Lotus don't do luxury cars in the same way that Aston Martin or Bentley does. But what they do very, very well is build some of the most potent track-ready road cars on the planet, which is exactly why we've come to Victoria's Phillip Island Raceway to have a go in the most powerful Evora ever, the GT430.
While it might look similar to any other Evora, the GT430 is anything but. This is a highly specialised version designed to carve up a racetrack like no other. You could say it's more closely related to the GT4 race car version. It's certainly the quickest Evora ever and boasts a top speed of 315 k's an hour, while 0 to 100 comes up in 3.8 seconds flat. And as you'd expect with any Lotus, it's light. Under 1,300 kilos is its curb weight, and that's nearly 200 kilos less than a Golf R.
Everything you see on this car is there for a reason. There's a ton of carbon fibre bits. Front splitter, intakes here. Very important, you've got these louvers at the top of the front wheel arches. They remove the turbulent air. Vital. You've got a carbon fibre roof. That's reduced the Evora's weight by 85 kilos thereabouts. More importantly, it lowers the centre of gravity. You've got a carbon fibre louver back here, and you've got this massive carbon fibre rear wing. Now all of that is enough to generate 250 kilos of downforce at the top speed of 315 k's an hour. This car should be glued to the track.
Oh, and the front and rear bumpers, they're carbon fibre too. The GT430 is quite simply a masterclass in weight saving, and as well as all the carbon, the exhaust system is titanium and cuts 10 kilograms from the rear of the car. The battery is lithium ion, again to reduce weight.
That's not all. This car also gets lightweight forged alloys that are stronger to withstand those downforces we talked about earlier. Now they're shod with Michelin's hardcore Pilot Sport Cut 2 tyres, the same as you get on Porsche's GT3 RS. The brakes are by AP Racing, 4-pot all round. The springs are by Ibark and the dampers are by Olin. I mean, it sounds like we're talking about a full-blown race car setup here, but this is a road car.
Under the carbon louver is the same 3.5 litre supercharged V6, only it's been reworked for the GT430 to make 321 kilowatts and 440 newton metres of torque, which is a significant upgrade when we are talking about this kind of lightweight chemistry. It's mated to a 6-speed manual shift gearbox exclusively, though you can get an auto if you buy the GT430 Sport, which means you also lose that massive rear spoiler and a fair chunk of the downforce. It's precise and involving, but perhaps disappointingly, it's not the superbly engineered open gate shift like you get with the Elise and Exige models.
The level of track-ready focus borders on the fanatical, and whenever I've driven a Lotus previously, the experience has always been addictive. Well, this should take that feeling to another level entirely, which is exactly what Lotus is betting on with the GT430.
This is a cams controlled event, meaning we can't drive and talk to the camera. And the weather isn't great either, so we won't be able to push that hard. But there's only 2 of these in the country, and we're lucky enough to have been given a taste of this car's track worthiness. Straight out of the pits, launching onto the track, there's instant throttle response, and that's down to the supercharger. And the steering is beautifully weighted, and you can feel everything those front tyres are doing thanks to the hydraulic system. But what's really noticeable is the extraordinary level of grip at the rear, even in the wet, surprising for these track-focused Michelins and a cold track temperature. Everything is just so precise. The brakes, just a light application, washes off so much speed. And the pedal pressures, it's like you're wired into the car itself. We're only in sport mode today, but we've dialed down traction control, which allows varying degrees of slip, with up to 6 settings, including off completely. With Lotus, it's all about driver involvement, but without the white-knuckled intimidation of other track-focused rivals. It's what makes them so user-friendly. From the very first time you turn the car in, it all feels so easy. In fact, you feel like a hero in here, and surely that's the point of a car like this. But even though the GT430 is a hardcore track car, it's still the flagship Lotus and the most luxurious in the range, meaning it's quite comfortable on a long drive or even the daily commute, because these leather-bound racing seats do offer superb comfort. And if you think the ride might be bone jarring, you'd be pleasantly mistaken.
You know, we've just driven over some pretty ordinary roads outside of Melbourne, and for a hardcore track car like the GT430, this thing actually rides pretty well. I mean, there's no crashing and banging as I would get in a 911 even. So I'm thinking that two-stage Öhlins in this car, the dampers that are set to its softest setting, this is more than enough for a daily commute even. Visibility has never been a hallmark of Lotus sports cars, but forward view is excellent. Rear view, on the other hand, all I can see in the rear view mirror is an engine. That's it. So I've got to use my side mirrors, and with that I've got a view of those beautiful ducts and those bulging wheel arches, and I've actually got pretty good rear view because of the way these mirrors are set, so not really a big issue, to be honest. What about road noise and tyre noise? Well, both are pretty bad, to be honest. I'm having to shout over the tyre noise from those Michelin Cup 2s just to be heard. But who cares? I'm having too much fun. I tell you what, the throttle response is phenomenal, but I don't mean violent, it's very, very smooth. And that noise, 4,500 RPM, and that titanium exhaust just absolutely roars in a beautiful metallic melody. Anyway, back to comfort. I think what makes this car so livable on a day-to-day basis are these seats. I mean, effectively they're carbon-backed racing seats, but they're just so well cushioned that you just feel completely relaxed behind the wheel. Surely that's what you want on a daily. There's plenty of Alcantara and leather inside here. In fact, the whole car is covered in the stuff, including the door cards. And there's this beautiful plaque down here, GT430. But that's where the radio lives. That's right, this car gets no radio. These cars are imported into the country without an audio system in the belief that buyers will choose their own, which is fair enough. With styling and form that look like they have no place on public roads, insane levels of grip, agility and downforce, Lotus has pushed the Evora to its engineering boundaries, and in doing so have put it up there with those rarefied cars like the Porsche GT3 RS, but at nearly half the price. But this is also a car that's comfortable enough to be driven as a daily, and in that regard, you'd have to call it a triumph.